It was a completely routine overnight trip. Air France Flight 447, a state-of-the-art Airbus A330, took off from Brazil heading to Paris with 228 people on board. This specific aircraft was incredibly advanced. It was equipped with modern weather radar and highly automated flight control systems designed to handle almost any situation. Flying it was considered exceptionally safe. But as the flight pushed out over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, it entered a communications dead zone. It flew entirely out of range of air traffic controllers in both Brazil and Senegal. And then it vanished. There was no report of a fire, no engine failure, and not a single distress signal. A structurally perfect airplane simply dropped out of the sky. Finding out what happened meant searching the pitch-black, freezing depths of the Atlantic, nearly 2.5 miles down, using autonomous submersibles to scan the jagged, lifeless seafloor. The recovery effort cost millions of dollars and dragged on for 3 full years. Search teams had to scour thousands of square kilometers of ocean just to locate the main wreckage. Finally, a robotic arm gripped the crucial piece of evidence, the aircraft's flight data recorder. These orange canisters contained the only record of the cockpit's final 4 minutes. By extracting the raw telemetry from this device, investigators could reconstruct the precise internal logic of the aircraft systems, revealing exactly how a modern computer failed its human operators. The trouble started when the plane flew directly into a massive, turbulent thunderstorm cell, surrounded by blinding flashes of lightning. Look at the schematic of the plane's pitot tubes. These are the external sensors responsible for measuring airspeed. At that high altitude, severe ice crystals instantly freeze over the tubes, physically blocking the air from getting inside. Because the tubes are blocked, the flight computer starts receiving corrupted speed data. To protect itself, the system triggers a fail-safe protocol and immediately disengages the autopilot. In a fraction of a second, the automated safety net vanished. Manual control of a massive aircraft was abruptly dumped onto a startled crew, flying through heavy turbulence in the dark. At that exact moment, the captain was on his required rest break. The least experienced co-pilot was at the controls, suddenly overwhelmed by a cacophony of deafening alarms and violent movement. Reacting out of panic, the co-pilot pulls back on his control stick, forcing the plane's nose aggressively upward. That steep angle destroys lift. Airflow completely detaches from the wings, putting the aircraft into a severe aerodynamic stall. The plane essentially stopped flying. It lost all lift, transformed into a falling object, and began dropping toward the ocean at a rate of 10,000 feet per minute. The captain rushed back into the cockpit. Realizing they were falling, he correctly attempted to push his stick forward to dive and regain the airspeed needed for lift. But there was a hidden problem. The panicked co-pilot was still pulling his own stick entirely backward, physically counteracting the captain's inputs. Because the Airbus side sticks are independent, the software mathematically averages out conflicting pilot inputs. One pilot pulling up and the other pushing down effectively cancels both commands. With the computer neutralizing the opposing stick movements, the elevator remained at a neutral setting, leaving the aircraft locked in its stalled attitude as it fell toward the sea. When investigators reviewed the black box data, they confirmed a tragic reality. The violent storm never actually caused any structural damage to the plane. If the pilots had simply taken their hands off the controls and waited less than a minute for the ice on the sensors to thaw, the autopilot would have re-engaged and stabilized the flight. The investigation noted that because the crew spent most of their flight time monitoring computers, their proficiency in manual, high-altitude stalls was essentially untested. This lack of regular hand-flying practice meant that in a moment of crisis, the basic physics of the stall were obscured by the noise of the cockpit alarms. Commercial flying has never been safer or more advanced, but that reliance on technology comes with a cost. In an era of near-total flight automation, the final line of defense remains a pilot's ability to recognize and override a system when its internal logic diverges from the raw laws of aerodynamics.